the slope describes how steep a line is. And if you think about a slope in like a non-mathematical terminology, you'd have the slope of a mountain. And a slope of a mountain can be like a steep mountain, like the Rockies, or it can be so not steep, like the Appalachians. And it's represented by the letter M, which would seem kind of like slope starts with S. Why is it M? And it's because M stands for magnitude. So it's like the magnitude of the line. So what slope actually is this. It's rise over run. So it's how far does the line go up versus how far does it go over. And we can calculate it. The rise is the change in y, and the run is the change in x. This is kind of written backwards, if you ask me. And so what that means is we have 2 points here and here on a line. And it doesn't matter which one of these points is the ones and which one of these points is the twos. So just pick, like this is the first point, this is the second, if you want to go from left to right, or you can say this is the first point, this is the second, if you're going up and down. It doesn't really matter. I like to go left to right because that's how I read. So this would be x1, y1, and this would be x2, y2. And so I subtract the 2 y's, and I subtract the 2 x's. Now, it doesn't matter which set is ones and which set is twos, but whichever set you put in the front for y has to be the same that you put in front for x. So, for example, if this point here was, say, like 3, 4, and this point over here was negative 2, negative 2 or something, I can't say 4 here and then negative 2 here. Because I can't take this x with this y and have them be reversed. They have to go in the same order. So if I choose that this has to be 4, then this has to be 3. Because they have to come from the same point. So this x and y make up 1 point, and this x and y make up another point. They have to come from the same set. They have to go in the same order. So it doesn't matter which one you say is first. You could pick negative 2 and negative 2 to be first, or you can pick 3 and 4 to be first. Yeah, the y has to go on the top always. Okay. It's always y is on the top over x's. That matters. Y is always on the top, x is on the bottom, and whichever y you pick to go first, the matching x has to go first. Does that make sense? Okay. Let me erase this so it's not confusing to look at later. Okay, so if we were going to calculate this slope and these were our actual points, I would say 4 minus negative 2 and 3 minus negative 2. Because I'm taking this y and x and subtracting this y and x. And maybe 2's are confusing. That's too big. I'll change this to I'll just say negative 1, negative 2. Just so it's not both 2's. Okay. Then the double negative makes it positive. So it would actually be 4 plus 2 over 3 plus 1, which would give me 6 over 4. And fractions are perfectly acceptable for slopes. You can leave it as a fraction, but if they both divide by 2, for example, I do have to reduce it. So the slope of this line, if these were the actual points, would be 3x. So you go up 3 over 2. To represent slope. And that's the slope-intercept form of an equation, and it's called slope-intercept form because this is the slope, and this is the y-intercept. slope-intercept because it has a slope in it and it has an intercept in it. So this form of an equation is really great for graphing because when you're graphing, let's do green. This tells me where to start, and this tells me where to go from there. So this is where I start, and this is where I go from there. So this is like directions. So like, it would be like this equation would be giving you directions. So if you said, I'm at the 7-Eleven, well, B would be the 7-Eleven. And you're saying, how do I get to your house? And then somebody might say, well, go take a left and go 3 blocks, and then take a right and go 2 blocks, and there's my house. That's the slope, the 3 blocks and the 2 blocks. Okay. And when you're on the coordinate plane, each line this way and this way is a block. So we want to start with putting this into the right format. So we want to turn this into y equals mx plus b, where m and b, this is a number and this is a number. So what we're going to do is we're going to rearrange. And I have 2 ways to kind of go about this. So we'll start with method 1. You know how some sports people, athletes, whatever you want to call them, become so big and so famous that they get to keep their number, and no matter what team they get traded on or whatever, they're always going to be that same exact number? Yeah? You know what I'm talking about? Maybe I'm not better than you in sports. Think of each side of the equal sign as a team, and the X is the athlete that's going to get traded to this other team, and he gets to keep his number, but even if you get to keep your same number, you have to change jerseys, right? When you go to the other team, you don't get to still wear the same colors because you're on a new team. The positive and the negative is the jersey. So when I pick up X and I move it over here, if I change sides, I change signs. I keep the same number. It's just if I was positive here, I'm negative over there. If I was negative here, I'm positive over there. So I picked it up and I moved it. So now instead of being positive 2x, it's going to be negative 2x. And the 7 stays positive because it didn't move. It was already there. So far okay? Then the next thing I need to do is I need y. See, y has no number on it. X can have a number, b is a number, but y can't have any numbers on it. So I need to get rid of this 4. So to get rid of a negative 4, multiplied times y, I divide by negative 4, and I have to divide everything by negative 4. Because this will cancel, leaving me with y. Negative 2 over negative 4 becomes positive 1/2 because they both divide by 2. And then 7 doesn't divide by 4, but this positive over negative makes the whole thing negative, and then I just leave it like that. The other method is the method you've probably seen most often. I need to still get this 2x over that side, so I subtract both sides by 2x. The biggest mistake I see happening here is then people say 7 minus 2 is 5, and then they write down 5x. You can just move it. I know, yeah, saying there's just 2 ways to move it. Yeah. It's going to end up the same. It's just 2 different ways to approach it. Now, if you subtract the 2x from both sides, this one cancels. You have to remember that 7 and 2x don't match because 7 doesn't have an x on it. So you can't do anything with them. You can't combine them and So you end up with negative 2x plus 7. Same as we had over here. And then you subtract, or not subtract, divide by negative 4. And you end up with the same answer. So it's the same exact process, it's just looked at in a different way. When I picked this up and moved it, I am subtracting it from both sides. I'm just not writing in the subtraction step. I'm just moving it and knowing that I have to change the sign. Or you can subtract it from both sides, but if you subtract it from both sides, remember that these don't match, so they can't combine.
Now, why did it do that? Okay, the whole point was we were trying to find the slope. That's to find the slope. Okay. Once it's in this format, here's the slope. And you can see I get the same slope no matter what. So when I find the slope of this line, that's what I was looking for. The slope is 1/2. So once I rearrange it, now I know the slope. Now we have horizontal lines and vertical lines. Those have special slopes. Horizontal line, if you have a horizontal line, it's flat like the horizon. The slope is always 0. Any horizontal line, always 0. And if I have actual, score marks, the red line, the equation for this red line would be y equals 4. Horizontal lines will always be y equals, and then wherever they cross the y-axis. Vertical lines, the slope is undefined. Okay. The reason that the horizontal line has a 0 slope is because the rise over run, right? The rise is 0. I'm not going up or down at all. And the run is, well, I can pick any point and make that my run. So we'll just call it 1 for right now. And so that equals 0. Because I'm not going up and down. So it's always going to be 0 because it's completely flat. Vertical lines have an undefined slope. And that's because my rise over my run is how far right or left I'm going. And I'm not going right or left at all. So my run is 0. And so it doesn't matter what number I pick. It's being divided by 0, which is not allowed. So it's undefined. And if I put some, marks here, and this is hitting at 3, the graph of this, or the equation of this line would be x equals 3. So if you have a straight up and down vertical line, it's always just x equals whatever number it hits the x-axis. Not too bad? So if we're given 2 points and we're going to calculate our slope, we have to pick, and like I said, normally I just go in order, but it really doesn't matter. You could have said these were 2's and those were 1's, or these are 1's or these are 2's. It doesn't really matter. But once I've got that, I plug them in. So my y2 is -9. My y1 is -1. And always remember it's minus whatever it is, so it's minus the negative. And then x2 is 7, and x1 is 5. And it's positive because we're happy. So that is the same thing as -9 plus 1. No, you don't have to write that step if you don't want to. So I get -8 over 2. So my slope is -4. From here, I have my slope is -4. If I needed to graph this, and I needed it to be directions, -4 is the same thing as -4 over 1. So my rise would be -4 and my run would be 1. So if you ever have a whole number, you just put it over 1. for graphing purposes. Right now we're not worried about that, but if you were graphing, you could put it over 1 to know the directions. Okay, sometimes you're given the slope, so this is m, and we're given a point, but we're missing one of the coordinates. And there's two ways to do this. We could do this with a equation, or we could do it with a picture and graph it. Personally, I think the equation's a little easier, but we can do it both ways. So what we have is we know m is -3. We have, say, x1, y1, x2, y2. So I'm going to substitute in what I know, except I'm going to rearrange it a little bit. Oh, I guess I don't have to. Never mind. Okay. So I have m equals, so I have -3 equals y2, which is -11, minus y1, which is -2, over x2, which is x, minus x1, which is 1. -11 plus 2 is -9 over x minus 1. Okay.
Wait, when it's a happy face, it's already out.
Yes, I did. I did -11 plus 2. But since it's still negative, the 11's bigger,
Oh,
so it stays negative. Yeah. So, any clue? Anyone remember from algebra what you do at this point when you have a variable in the denominator? Okay. To cancel this variable out of the denominator, I need to multiply both sides of this by x minus 1 times -3. So I'm putting the parentheses around it so I don't get confused and do x minus 1 minus 3. Does that make sense? Because it's times -3, so you want to be really careful about that. These will cancel. And so let me bring back the red. I have -3 times x and -3 times -1. So it gives me -3x plus 3 equals -9. Then I solve this in the kind of normal way. I subtract 3 from both sides. Should have picked a different color. And I'm just going to move this over here. And I get -3x is equal to -12, because -9 and -3 is -12. Then I'm going to divide both sides by -3. And I get that x is equal to 4. So that's my missing point. So this point here would be 4, -11. On this step here, okay, you want to be really careful, because if I had written x minus 1 minus 3, meaning to multiply, but I didn't multiply it, or I forget that it's multiplying, and then I look at that on the next step and I go, oh, x minus 1 minus 3, that's x minus 4. So that would be really wrong. That's why you need to make sure you put the parentheses around this so that you know to multiply. Or put like a multiplication symbol in parentheses, but just something that makes sure you know that I have to multiply this -3, not subtract it. Okay, so just make sure of that. This one, already in the right format, you just need to identify which number is the slope. This one you'll need to rearrange. And these will use the slope formula. So if you look at these, lines 1 and 3 look parallel to each other, and line 2 looks to be perpendicular. Okay, if I come back to these graphs, If I put this into y equals mx plus b format, and then I put this into, or this is already in, b is just 0. You'll see that 1 and 3 that look parallel have the same slope. And number 2, which is perpendicular, has a different slope. Parallel lines have the same slope. So if I have 2 parallel lines, the slopes will be the same. Perpendicular lines have slopes that are negative reciprocals of each other. And so what this means is they're opposite and upside down, which we already kind of talked about a little bit. So m would be perpendicular to negative 1 over m. So opposite sign and flipped over. So with real number examples, a slope of 2 is parallel to a slope of 2. A slope of 2/3 is perpendicular to a slope of negative 3/2. So to be perpendicular, you flip it and change the sign. Yeah, we have. If there's this line with a slope of -5, parallel is also -5, and then perpendicular is positive 1/5. So, okay so far? Now I want to find the slope of a line parallel to this line. So the first thing I need to do is I need to find the slope of this line. I need to know what the slope is before I can find the parallel slope. So I take that 2x plus 3y equals 12. And for this one, I'm going to do the pick it up and move it and change the sign method. So I get 3y is equal to negative 2x plus 12. Then I divide both sides by, or all things, by 3 to get rid of that on the y. Okay, here's my slope. My parallel slope will also equal negative 2/3. If I was asked for the perpendicular slope would be positive 3/2. So, same idea. Here I need to put it into y equals, well, for all of these rather, they need to be into y equals mx plus b format. And here, this is y equals 0x plus 3. It's kind of already in mx plus b format, it just m happens to be 0. So same on here. Okay. Now if I'm talking about a parallel slope, this works okay. I would still have 0. But if I'm talking about a perpendicular slope, what would be perpendicular to 0? Well, perpendicular, if I have a horizontal line, a vertical line is going to be perpendicular. And do you remember what the vertical line slope is? That's because there isn't one.
That's what I was gonna say, but
Yeah,
you're
there.
making it seem like there was an answer.
Yeah, well, there is an answer, and the answer is that there's no answer, or that it's undefined. But you have to say undefined so that you know you're talking about a vertical line. Okay. With this example up here, I would rearrange this and put it into y equals mx plus b format. So I would have negative 18y is equal to negative 9x plus 27. That's just moving the 9x over. I would divide everything by negative 18. then that would give me y equals 1/2 negative 3/2. Not that that matters really. We were just interested in the slope. So parallel slope here was also going to be 1/2. Down here, to find that, I'm going to have to use the slope equation. So I would plug in 12 minus negative 2 and 8 minus 3, giving me 14/5. And I don't have to, that doesn't reduce, I don't have to divide it, I just leave it that way. 14/5, that's my slope. My perpendicular slope is going to be negative 5/14. Okay?